Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to do a feasibility across a master plan. It's going to take about 20 minutes. It's going to show you a lot of the functionality of Giraffe in quite a deep way. So let's crack into it. All right, so my master plan is going to be a residential master plan, and I'm going to do two options, and then we'll do a simple kind of financial feasibility on it. So let's just put some towers across the site. All right, and we're doing a very straightforward master plan because the point of this video is not so much the plan, it's more the feasibility. But I can never resist doing a master plan, so it will be done. Okay. All right, there we go, and let's copy this guy across, pop him over here. All right, so we've got this kind of master plan here, and it's different heights across the the site, and maybe we'll put a bit more landscape in, and I think in a while I'll put some paving in, but you'll get the gist of it from just from this. Okay, now I'm going to give myself a head start with the metric template, which is the same as the imperial template. And that just imports a whole bunch of measures. And I've clicked on the sale option feasibility tab at the top there. Now I'm going to click on this configure button. I'm going to go to my settings and I'm going to turn off the area tab. And I'm going to get out of there just to get rid of that. Okay. And then let's collapse this and just look at the costs. So my hard costs is currently set to $88 million. If I click on that, you can see that the way that this is being calculated is with this measure. The measure is measured in currency, in dollars, and the name of it is hard cost. There's two properties that are being pulled out of the model. The first property is the gross area, and the next property is the hard cost, and we're just multiplying the two together. And if I cycle through each feature in the model, you can see what's going on. So let's actually break this down in a different way. So the usage editor is where Giraffe controls most of the properties. Now, all of these buildings that we have here have the same usage. That usage is residential. I can click on this one and I can say, hey, let's make this guy a hotel as part of my scheme, and he goes pink. And now if I click on him, then I click the usage editor, you can see the hotel usage is shown here. And all of the properties here apply to all of the geometries with the same usage. So if we go to the residential usage, using the selector at the top, and I change the color to blue, and I hit save, all the residential in the project goes blue. And if I change the hard cost to $3,500 or $4,500 a square meter, all of the hard costs for every single residential building or geometry in this whole project change. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my costs to the usage. All right, and cost structure. I'm going to do just structural cost and fit out cost. Cost structure and cost fit out. Okay, save. And let's say the structural cost is $1,500 and the fit out cost is $2,000. Now, if you had substructure or FF&E or however you break down these elemental costs, you could do it in Giraffe. I'm just sort of proving the point here. So I've added those two costs to the usage, and I'm going to delete the hard cost, right? And I'm going to delete the soft cost. The sale price will leave in there, and let's make it sort of $8,000. And I'm going to hit save changes. Now you can see because I changed that color back, everything changes back. And now each geometry, each residential geometry in this entire project has this cost structure and this cost fit out set to 15 and 2,000. And so if we come back to our hard cost over here, it's dropped from 88 million to 37 million. And the reason for that is because the only one left is the hotel. So if we cycle across to a residential building, you can see the gross area and the hard cost. The equation doesn't make sense because there is no hard cost. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change that equation. So instead of using the hard cost, I'm going to use the cost structure. And I'm also actually going to add the cost fit out, right? So those two costs that we just added, I'm going to use. And you can see they're called A, B, and C. So the gross area is called A, the cost structure is B, and the cost fit out is C. And you can see C is red because we haven't used it in our formula yet. And the formula is going to be A times, in brackets, B plus C. So we're going to add the structure cost and the fit out cost together to get a total cost, and then we're going to multiply that by the gross area. So the effect of that will be that we're timesing the gross area for every single building by 3,500, like 2,000 plus 1,500. Okay, and so you can see we go through like that. Now, if we get to the hotel, we should see that this thing breaks down because the hotel doesn't have the structure and the fit out cost applied to it. Okay, so the way we're going to fix that is we select hotel, we go here, and let's just add those properties. So we've got to go cost structure, and the cost structure for the hotel, let's say it's slightly more expensive, let's say it's 2,000. So I'm going to save changes there. Now the other thing I'm going to do, now that won't change that because the way that Giraffe works is if there's anything missing, if any one of this A, B, C, if you have D, E, F, G's, if anyone is missing, Giraffe just ignores that feature. And because we didn't put the fit out cost on the hotel usage, it's skipped. So these residential ones, and you can see we cycle through each building, are working, but this hotel one is not working because it doesn't have a fit out cost. And I'm going to change the name of this thing to total build cost, just to show you can always change things. And I'm going to show you a little trick, a little shortcut. To change the fit out cost, we can click on this little edit property here, boink, and that brings out every usage in the project. And it's the fit out cost. And you can see we set the fit out cost of the resi to 2,000, but the hotel is blank. So if we set that to 2,300 and save, the $110 million has now just jumped to 162. And if we click on it, you can see hotel is now included. It's actually giving us a $51 million total for that building because we've got the 2,000 structural cost and the 2,300 fit out cost. And just go through it again. I added the hotel cost by coming over here, the structure cost to the hotel, and then adding new property and going cost structure. But I added the fit out cost with this little shortcut by clicking over here and then just adding the fit out cost over there. And so I'll just add some retail. So I'm just going to add the retail fit out cost over here, 3,000. And I'm going to go back here, and the structure cost, I'm going to go down and fit out the retail structure cost at 2,000. And I'm going to hit save changes. Now that's not going to change anything because there is no retail in our project. But if I hit copy and paste, and I'm going to just drop that to one level, and I'm going to change its usage to retail, suddenly we go up. And that's because if we cycle across to find that retail, the 2,000 and the 3,000 are there, and I added that with the shortcut, and it's adding to our build cost, which should say build cost. I must have forgotten to hit save. Build cost. Okay, so all you're doing is at the usage level, you're setting up these numbers, cost structure, cost fit out. You can call them whatever you want. You can make as many as you want. And then in the measure, you're using those parameters that you've added to the usages to define costs. Now, say this building here is in a particularly difficult part of this site. As in, I want to add more structural cost to this guy, but not to everything. So there's two ways I could do it. I could clone this usage and create like difficult resi, and then I could set the structural cost to like 4,000 and hit save, and maybe make this thing like a slightly darker color and hit save again, and then turn this, and so we're at 166 million, and if I turn this to difficult resi, we've gone up to 181 million because of that additional structural cost, right? That's possible. That's a valid way of doing it. Let me turn it back to normal resi, normal residential. We go back to 166 million. The other way of achieving that is I can add a property to the geometry. So rather than adding the property to the usage, I'm going to add the property to the geometry. I'm going to add that cost structure property, and I'm going to set it to $4,000. And what that's going to do is it's going to override the structure, the cost structure property on the usage at the geometry level. And you can see we've gone back up to 181 million. And if I change this to 1, We're down to 157 million because this cost structure at the geometry level on this geometry that I have selected is overriding the cost structure, which is here at 1500 on the usage level. So you can always override on the geometry. So let's just show a simple way of doing parking. Say I wanted to do parking at a building level. I could add a parking required. Now that's a Giraffe property, so I'm going to add parking needed, right? And it's going to be a number, and I'm just going to say my consultant has told me that the hotel needs 50 car parks, and this building, I'm going to add that parking needed. This building needs 30, and the other buildings don't need any parking. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my default tab, and in my built form, I'm going to add another measure by clicking the little plus. I'm going to say parking needed, and the unit is car parks. And I'm going to looking for that parking needed parameter, and I'm just going to return it, right? So I'm going to go through every feature, every geometry in the project. I'm going to look for the parking needed parameter, which for the hotel is 50, and for that other building is 30, and I'm going to sum them up. I'm going to save, and there's that parking needed, 80, and if say that the consultant comes back and says, actually it's 120 for the hotel, I change that at 120, and it's up to 150. So I've just made up a new parking needed calculator at a building level, and it's working. Now, of course, Giraffe does parking calculations with this parking required. If you click on the residential and you look at the units, the dwelling, like the unit mix or the dwelling mix, there's a cars required for every type, right? So the 1 bed needs a half, the 2 bed needs 1, the 3 bed needs 2. Let's set the studio to 0. And that's got that special parking required parameter, which Giraffe uses to drive these numbers. So you can see if I hover on that 437, the hotel needs 108, the residential 321, and the retail 8. And that's with that special parking required parameter. Parking required is 1 per 100 square meters. But this parking needed parameter, which I've just invented, can also be used. So in Giraffe, you can always use the Giraffe way, which is parking required, or you can just make it up. Absolutely just make it up. All right, so let's get back to the sales calculator. Okay, so we've got this build cost, it's at 180 million. Now I've got soft cost. I'm going to change that to consultants and taxes. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to change measuring it from a soft cost parameter, as in measuring it per square meter. I'm just going to grab the build cost, that 180 million, that thing, boink. And that's all I'm going to take. And then I'm just going to multiply that by 0.15. So my consultants, taxes, and soft costs, so maybe that's my internal management fees, that's 15%. So whatever the construction cost is, 180 million times 0.15, that's 27 million. I'm going to save. There's my consultants and taxes. And my contingency is taking that build cost plus that consultants and taxes, and it's multiplying it by 0.1. So it's adding them together, multiplying it by 0.1, that's $20 million. 20 million and 700,000. And you can see that there's 180 plus 27 is going to be 207, and then by 0.1, 20.7. And if you add the 180 plus the 27 plus the 20, you're going to get 228 total costs. This cost structure, if we make this 11 million, lots of ones, we've gone up to 6 billion. If we come back here into the residential and we change the cost structure to 0, and we change this cost structure to 2, you can see we're down to 118 million because all we've got is fit out, right? So once this thing's set up, everything's connected at the usage level where you're controlling the global kind of parameters, but also at the geometry level, at the individual building level. Okay, now the sales income, it's the same thing, the residential sales value, sale price times saleable area. Just a note on saleable area. In Giraffe, there are 3 areas. There's the gross area. You can see it in the urban tab. There's the GBA, the gross building area. That's the area of the polygon. So in this instance, 828 square meters, as in 39.1 meters times 21.2 meters, times the number of levels, in this case 7. That's the gross area. The net area, or the GFA, is the gross area times this efficiency, the one which we just call efficiency. And then the saleable area, the NSA, is the gross area times by this efficiency. Now you can set the saleable bigger to the net, or you can set them to 100 and 0. Giraffe doesn't care what these numbers are or what they represent, whether you're netting out your balconies, whether you're including corridors, whether you're netting off the walls. These are just numbers to help you calculate. Just in Giraffe, there's always 3 areas: gross, net, and saleable. And normally we default them to 80% and 72% so that the saleable is 90% of the net. Because the net for us normally includes corridors or lobbies, which are a statutory area, but they're not sellable. So that's the logic there. But honestly, you can do whatever you want with them. Okay, and what we're doing with them here is our residential sales values. We're taking the saleable area and multiplying it by the sales price. And if we wanted to change it to the gross area, we could do that. So if our cost consultant is talking about gross, we just do that. But I'm going to use saleable because that makes far more sense. I should just discard those changes. Then our non-residential sales is just our hotel and our retail. Now, our retail is not working that well, right? Because there's no sale price on the retail, so it's being fully excluded. What we could do is we could work out net rent retail measured in dollars, in currency, sorry, not in percents, in dollars. And I'm going to filter down. I'm only going to apply this to retail. And I'm going to just get the saleable area. And I'm going to say we're going to rent it out $200 a month and then times 12, right? So that's going to be the total rent, 1.7 million. We can do that, no problem. All right, now our total sales are just taking the residential sales value. So we're picking a measure, not a model property. We're picking an existing measure, i.e. one of these rows. We're picking the residential sales values, which is over there, and we're adding it to the non-residential sales. And we're getting ourselves 232 million bucks, which in our case is below our total costs. So our sales feasibility is not going to make sense because someone is going to have to gift us the land and $51 million in order for us to make a return, which is set to 20% on our costs. So 20% of that 244, so let's get our residential sales values up to a normal amount. So we click on our sales price, right? Our residential set to 8,000, and that's not working for us after soft costs, etc. So let's set that to 10,000. Let's set our hotel to something. We're going to sell our hotel to a hotel operator at 11,000 per square meter. If we save changes, all right, we're back in business. Okay, our sales, our total sales has now gone up to 338 million. And our residual land price, which is this calculation that back solves, it takes your total costs, your total sales, puts in a 20% return on cost, and then works out what you can pay for the land in order to make those variables work together. Means we can pay $37 million for the land and make a return of 56 million, which is 20% on our costs. And that equation there, you could set your own equation up. There's a non-zero chance that I've messed that equation up. I don't think I have, but it could be possible. But you can just set it up yourself. This is just simple mathematics. All right, so we're coming up to minute 19. I said this would be a 20-minute video. And I've sort of taken through how you can set the properties, how you can set the costs and the pro formas. I just want to show you a couple more things. So the first thing is, say you want to show stuff per building. All right. There's a couple of ways. So in areas, you can always go by building, and you get those areas by building, and you get this silly ID unless you add the building ID property. That's a special Giraffe property, just like parking required. And if you say building A, you should get building A somewhere. Now, why am I not getting that? Sorry. 1 second. 1 second. By building, okay, there's building A, right? And if you added building ID over here, this can be building B, and you see building B over there. And these colors are just sort of made up. All right, the other thing is if you want to see some other parameters, you can add this marker property, and then you can actually get some areas. So let's just get the NSA in square meters for these buildings and save. And you can see the NSA of this building is 3.7. And if I stretch that, that's 7. And look at this, just to drive home the point. If I add a new property and I add efficiency, the cell efficiency, and I override the cell efficiency, which is defined by the residential use, because this is a residential building, and I set that to 1%, the NSA drops to 51 square meters. If I set it to 100%, it's back up to 51,000, right? And if I delete it, it goes to 3,700, and it's picking that up from the 72%. So I used the basic, and then I overrode it a few times. This is how we sort of mainly look at the per building data. Okay, a lot of information in the video, but hopefully if you slow it down or rewind or whatever, that it's relatively clear.